Over the last decade, the idea of self-improvement online has gone through a pretty dramatic transformation, especially when it comes to the really weird world of looksmaxing. It started, at least on the surface, as mostly harmless, simple skincare routines, learning how to dress better, what to do at the gym, how to fix your posture, that sort of thing. But it wasn't long before it became way too focused on the idea of optimization. And because of that, things started to escalate. It started becoming about jaw exercises, face hammering, major surgical interventions, and injecting yourself with anything and everything, apparently, by the looks of things. What used to be about simple grooming habits and becoming healthier in general slowly turned into a race to engineer the perfect face and body, or at least what these forums and streamers have apparently decided is perfect. Young men now see their bone structure and physical frame as the most important factors in determining their self-worth. And they're talking about surgical procedures, testosterone use, and injecting all sorts of things into their bodies in the same casual way you might talk about a vitamin supplement or using protein powder. I don't know if you've seen it online, but especially on TikTok, there's loads of kids who just do this thing where all they do is do this at the camera, pointing at their jawline. Listen, I've literally just come back from having nose filler and Botox. You can see the injection points on my nose. And I'm very open about that, but we aren't talking about going to a professional to have these little tweakments done. People are buying injectables off places like TikTok Shop and the dark web and injecting them at home. And somewhere in the middle of all this, one person has risen to the top to become the poster boy of the looksmaxing community, Clavicular. For some reason, I don't know why, he's become aspirational to thousands of young men who see him as the perfect example of what a man should be. Even though he represents some of the worst aspects of this whole pseudo-alpha, self-optimization focused world. Is he a good-looking guy? I guess he's a little bit average looking to me, to be honest with you. I think there are better looking guys out there who aren't all about this looksmaxing thing. But today I do want to talk about Clavicular as an example of how self-optimization can turn into something completely different when taken to extremes, and how some of these practices used by him and other looksmaxers might actually be ruining their looks in the long run. This isn't about shaming the looksmaxing community. I've already done that in another video, but I do want to find out how we got to such a strange place where men are doing these things to themselves, why Clavicular in particular is so popular with these people, and who they're really doing this for. So let's do a quick recap of what looksmaxing is exactly for those who aren't sure. As I mentioned, I've already done a video on this, so I won't go into too much detail. You can watch that video here. The terrifying world of looksmaxing, incel obsession turned TikTok trend. My titles are really good, I'm not gonna lie. But looksmaxing is an online subculture focused around the idea that male attractiveness, at least in physical sense, can and should be systematically optimized or maximized based on what these people see as ideal male features. And it actually originated in incel forums just over a decade ago and has steadily become more and more mainstream since then, especially since it made its way onto TikTok and YouTube. Over the years, looksmaxers seem to have become obsessed with the things like facial ratios, jaw angles, and which ways your eyes tilt, which I kind of get actually. I kind of wish my eyes, I feel like they sag down a little bit, but you know, I'm not about to take a hammer to my face like these people do. They've even developed their own vocabulary and ranking systems, like a high score on their attractiveness scale, meaning you're a Chad, an average score being a normie, and a low score get you called subhuman. Not to mention that all of this, along with your perceived social status and wealth, is used to calculate what they refer to as your sexual market value, which is just gross. I don't see women being impressed by this in any way, but we'll talk about this a bit later. It's all for the men. And this is where the issue with the looksmaxing community really starts. If it was just people telling each other how to improve their grooming habits, dress better, or start a skincare routine, then that wouldn't be a problem. But looksmaxing has become synonymous with this kind of degrading language, putting people down based on their looks, as well as racism, misogyny, and bigotry. And on top of all that, we have grifters like Clavicular who are trying to profit from first convincing their fans that they aren't attractive enough and that their self-worth is based on their looks, before going on to sell them a course promising to unlock their hidden potential, or selling them pseudo-scientific DIY tools like jaw enhanced exercises, eye lifting devices, and posture correctors. All these shitty little things you buy on like Temu. But that's just the start of it. Some of the tools and hacks promoted by looksmaxing are harmless, and some might even help a little bit, but a lot of it is also a complete scam, and some of what they're promoting is extreme and unnecessary, or even just outright dangerous, and that's where Clavicular comes in. In recent years, looksmaxing has expanded to include a long list of elective surgeries and at-home DIY hacks that are often completely unnecessary, difficult, or even impossible to reverse, as well as being painful and dangerous. We've got teenage boys talking about getting buccal fat removal, which is a permanent procedure, like it's the most normal thing in the world, and that's just the start of it really. In the looksmaxing world, you can find young men, as well as literal children, casually discussing things like jaw implants to increase width and projection, calf implants to balance out your lower body, rib removal to give you a slimmer waist and a pronounced V taper, and eye surgery to get something called hunter eyes. Apparently that's the best type of eyes according to looksmaxers. Literally no one gives a shit. And with people like Clavicular to look up to, it's no surprise that so many of these young men think that this is all perfectly normal. As the leading face in the world of looksmaxing, I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of, he's known for using and promoting some of the most extreme procedures and practices, within that community. He's regularly talked about the benefits of bone smashing, which is basically punching yourself in the face or hitting your face with a hammer, because he says it can apparently change your bone structure, chiseling it to a more desirable shape. So many doctors and scientists have come out and said that there is no truth behind this whatsoever. Hitting your bones or even breaking them isn't going to sculpt them or define them in any way. If that was the case, we wouldn't be getting filler and stuff like that, we'd just be smashing our faces. They also point out how dangerous it obviously is and how it can result in permanent damage. If you're lucky, it could just cause pain and temporary swelling. If you're very unlucky, you could end up with internal bleeding, irreversible nerve damage, broken bones that heal wrong, leaving you disfigured, or it could require surgery to fix, leaving facial scars. So bone smashing can't improve your appearance, but there's a not so small chance that you could permanently damage your appearance, which is the opposite of what looksmaxers are after. But Clavicular still stands by the practice, called it legit, and saying it really makes a difference. He just went through puberty. All these guys just go through puberty and pretend that it was looksmaxing. Bearing in mind, Clavicular has no kind of like training, medical experience, or scientific training in that area of expertise whatsoever. So listen to the doctors or listen to the teenager online. I don't know. He's also talked about how he's planning to get a double jaw surgery as well as a rhinoplasty and facial implant soon, all at the same time. He's apparently going to Turkey to have the surgery once they finish manufacturing his implants. That is a lot of surgeries to have all at once. It's a pretty drastic step to take, especially for someone who's still only 20 years old. This isn't looksmaxing, this is just getting surgery. Anyone can do that. Just rename it, getting surgery. Extreme Makeover, UK edition, US edition, wherever he is. But it doesn't stop there. If you want to talk about drastic surgeries, then we need to discuss the fact that Clavicular has said he's thinking about getting limb lengthening surgery once he's finished with his face. If you haven't heard of this limb lengthening surgery, it's basically what it sounds like. It's a procedure that makes your legs longer so you become taller. It is an incredibly painful and invasive procedure that can take up to a year to recover from, as well as requiring intensive physical therapy to rebuild muscle strength and range of motion. They basically cut either your shin or your thigh bone, sometimes both, and use either an internal telescopic rod or an external frame to slowly pull the bone segments apart, or usually between 0.5 millimeters and 1 millimeter a day. This stimulates the growth of new bone and blood vessels, nerves, and soft tissue, essentially filling in the gap between the two parts of the bone that's been cut. They repeat this over and over and over again, usually for a couple months, until the desired growth is achieved. It's not funny. I don't mean to laugh at these people, but I have seen people get these surgeries done. Like, they may as well just wear like buffalo shoes. Like, the height's not that different. And I've also seen them walking after this. They all look like they've shat themselves. It's just not worth it. No one's gonna care. And because Clavicular is so popular, he is making thousands of young men think that this is a normal thing to do. The crazy part is not even short. He's 6'2", but apparently that isn't good enough, as it only puts him in the top 9% of men for height. Who head. It is so stupid. But the surgery will take him to 6'6", which will put him in the top 1%. This constant obsession with optimizing every little thing about his appearance, at least optimizing them to looksmaxing standards, is so weird and so concerning. Since when is being 6'2" not good enough? I'm 5'11" and I'm taller than most people I meet. Is it really worth going through such a painful experience and a year of recovery just to be a little bit taller than he already is? I don't think so. And all of that is only the things that he's doing to the outside of his body. Arguably, the things he's putting inside his body are even more worrying. The number of men injecting themselves with everything from peptides that support weight loss or improve skin elasticity to performance enhancers like testosterone and steroids has skyrocketed in the last decade. And some of them, like Clavicular, take chemical optimization to even further extremes, which we'll get onto in a minute. There are a lot of reasons for this change in how young men view injecting themselves with all these things, but the looksmaxing community is definitely one of them. Looksmaxing forums are full of posts discussing what drugs to use and where to get them from. Their obsession with optimization has led to looksmaxers to try pretty much anything to fix their perceived deficiencies. Peptides in particular have become incredibly popular recently. The most common is probably GLP-1 agonists, which is the umbrella term for weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Wegovy. Most people have probably heard of these by now, but there are actually loads of different peptides used for all sorts of different reasons. In the looksmaxing community, of course, people are using GLP-1s for weight loss and appetite suppression, but rather than Ozempic or any of the other similar drugs we know about, looksmaxers are using an experimental injectable called retatrutide. I'll put it here, and this is supposedly more effective than current weight loss drugs, but it's still undergoing testing and hasn't been approved for use yet. I believe it's being used in China, I'm not sure. Clavicular seems to be happy to use and promote this though already.
No, I don't recommend you do Addies, but I recommend you do, retatrutide, like Ozempic.
So why not just take a simple peptide injection once a week and your appetite goes away? Yeah, exactly.
Outside of weight loss related peptides, looksmaxers are also using GHKCU to prevent hair loss and improve skin quality. Despite the limited testing outside of clinical use, menolatan to get a better tan despite risk of uneven pigmentation, mole darkening, and even potential melanoma concerns, IGF-1 to help grow muscles despite risks of tissue overgrowth and potential tumor promotion, as well as BPC-157, CJC-1295, argireline, and more, all of which have various benefits as well as their own potential risks. So as you can probably tell, the trouble is that these peptides are largely unregulated and inadequately tested in both the US and the UK at the moment, and it's a similar situation in many other countries. In many other places, the loophole that many sellers are using is that it's technically legal to sell peptides as long as it's for research purposes only and not for human use. But that doesn't actually stop anyone from buying them for human consumption. Sellers have to state on their website that they're only for lab research, but they don't actually require any proof that that's the reason you're buying them or that you work or own a lab of any kind. So now thousands, if not millions, of people are injecting themselves with untested substances, and because there is no regulation, there's no quality control over their purity, their storage and transportation conditions, or anything really. All very important things when you are shipping medicines, supplements, things you're injecting into your body. Obviously, none of this stops people like Clavicular from using these substances, from promoting their use by other people. And what's worrying is that it doesn't stop there, because once you normalize taking untested and unregulated peptides, it's not that big a leap to things like testosterone and steroids. Now sure, performance enhancers have been normalized in some parts of gym culture for decades, but what's different now is that it's not just these aspiring bodybuilders using these drugs anymore. It's average people, and more worryingly, it's how young these people are when they start using them. Clavicular, for example, has said he started using testosterone that he bought on the internet when he was just 14. That's crazy. That's crazy. Why does a 14-year-old think they need testosterone. He admits that he was a severely overweight teenager, struggling with acne at the time, and that he wanted to accelerate in his transformation through pharmaceuticals so he could change his life as quickly as possible. But bizarrely nowadays, he completely denies that his obsession with perfecting his appearance has anything to do with his own insecurities. Instead, he insists that it all comes from simply being logical. He says that he believes that how attractive someone is the most important factor that determines success in all aspects of life. So in his opinion, the only logical thing to do is maximize his appearance, no matter the cost. And there are definitely been costs to his choices. Clavicular recently revealed that his years of using testosterone since such a young age means that his body can't naturally produce the hormone anymore. And on top of that, it's left him infertile. He also said that he does want kids one day and that he's pretty certain he should be able to restore his fertility in the future when he wants to start a family.
So right now, I am infertile, but I'm not able to have a kid right now. But if I wanted to, there's a protocol I can put in place to be immediately good again.
Wait, why are you infertile right now?
It's just like a negative feedback loop when you're not needing to produce testosterone anymore because your body realizes, okay, we're getting it from an exogenous
So you're not producing
source.
any testosterone naturally?
No.
None?
No.
Studies have shown that fertility does return for the majority of men after stopping testosterone use, but it can take up to 2 years for some people. But that's for people who only use testosterone for a fairly short period, like a few months up to a year. The longer you continuously use it for, the less likely your fertility will ever return. And Clavicular has apparently been using it for about 6 years now. I'm not sure that really was a logical choice. It seems more like it was made by an insecure teenager who, by his own admission, had very little understanding of pharmacology at the time, and that's okay. It's okay to be insecure about aspects of your appearance and to want to make changes. It seems like the biggest thing in your life when you're a teenager. People don't give a bit shit about this when you grow up, but at the time, I get it. It's a huge deal. People do think their looks is everything, but it's not okay to then prey on other people's insecurities in order to raise your profile and make money from them, all while hiding behind a made-up shield of logic just to justify what you're doing. And these logical claims fall apart even further when you look at some of the other things Clavicular chooses to do. He's also said that he started experimenting with trampoline early on, which is an anabolic steroid that's become very popular with gym goers, especially younger ones in recent years. It's been around for decades, but like I said, it was mostly used by athletes and bodybuilders in the past. Now it's trending with teenage boys, and that is terrifying. The negative side effects of trampoline, or tren, as it's often called, can include things like hair loss, cystic acne, testicular shrinkage, erectile dysfunction, liver dysfunction, and heart problems, as well as severe psychological changes like increased aggression, mood instability, insomnia, paranoia, and violent behavior. If you have ever heard of the term roid rage, this is what people are talking about. Some studies even suggest that tren can cause cell death in your brain, meaning long-term adverse reactions to brain health. And despite Clavicular's allegedly logical thinking, this was apparently a risk he was more than happy to take. But unsurprisingly, he suffered the same problems many others do on tren, such as anger issues and hair loss, which shouldn't be a shock because tren, had he done his research, is estimated to cause adverse reactions in roughly 90% of users and has never been approved for use in humans. I don't think that's that logical. You know, you might not think it could get much worse than that, but the use of questionable pharmaceuticals doesn't stop here for looksmaxing, or for Clavicular, for that matter. Perhaps the most dramatic and attention-seeking thing he's done, Clavicular has openly said that he uses crystal meth in order to suppress his hunger and give him the hollowed-out cheekbones he's looking for. This isn't actually anything new. Methamphetamine actually has a long history of being used to suppress hunger, especially between the 1940s and 60s, back before they worked out the horrendous side effects of the drug that the drug has on people. But Clavicular admits that these claims are partly for shock value, and he isn't actually taking the street version of crystal meth that people are going to think of when he says crystal meth. But he isn't far off that, to be fair. What he's actually taking is a prescription drug called Decomposing, which is medical grade methamphetamine. It's basically the same thing though. Prescription meth is just an FDA approved version of meth that is purer and produced to more consistent standards than street meth, and it's taken orally in much much lower dosages to treat things like severe ADHD and obesity. But both forms are highly addictive stimulants and are classified as Schedule II controlled substances, which has made some wonder how Clavicular even got his hands on it. Desoxin is rarely prescribed for weight loss due to its high risk of addiction. It's only prescribed after all the safer medications have failed, and even then it's only for short-term use. Considering Clavicular hasn't been obese for years now, it seems unlikely that it was for that. The other option is ADHD, which he hadn't talked about until recently as far as I can tell, when he joked on one of his live streams about having ADHD now that he actually just got it, and that he caught it from his friend, which is obviously not how ADHD works. Now, it's possible that he has genuinely been diagnosed with ADHD recently, but it came months after he first talked about using Desoxin. So some people online are skeptical about how exactly Clavicular got the prescription drug, or if he might be bending the truth a little bit. It might not seem like that big a deal to some people, but with him being such a prominent member of the looksmaxing community, obviously so many of his fans are going to be trying to follow in his footsteps. Looksmaxing forums now have loads of people talking about how to fake ADHD so they can get prescription methamphetamines, and discussing using it in terms of optimizing or biohacking. Like meth is just another tool to use to achieve your goal. This is a crazy escalation for looksmaxers, if I'm honest. You start with approved peptides for weight loss, then you start learning about the untested and unregulated peptides that you can buy from random websites. I've seen them on TikTok Shop, I've seen them on Amazon. Then you progress to testosterone injections, growth hormone, and anabolic steroids, and then you finally end up lying about medical conditions so you can get your hands on prescription meth. And that's assuming they all know that Clavicular is just joking about using crystal meth. Because before researching this, I didn't. I genuinely thought he was taking crystal meth to hollow out his cheeks. It isn't ridiculous to think that some of his fans might not realize he's taking medical grade meth and that they could go buy actual crystal meth on the streets, or that even if they don't know what he's talking about, if they're desperate and can't get a prescription for it, they might think crystal meth is the answer. Like, it's crazy to me. Either way, I doubt Clavicular cares as long as they keep following him and buying his courses. What's bizarre is that methamphetamine use is well known to noticeably accelerate the appearance of aging. We can see examples here. This sounds awful to say, but some of the before and afters of crystal meth, you know, people getting off crystal meth, go viral because of how they looked whilst taking crystal meth to their recovery. The difference is day and night. Even at lower doses, it can cause rapid fat loss, hollowing out of the face. It can make skin look dull and rough, and features quickly start to look gaunt rather than sharp or defined. As I said, we've all seen those dramatic before and after photos used in anti-drug campaigns. The way meth use can visibly age someone in a short span of time, and his using this on top of everything else he also used that could be damaging to his health and his appearance, like the steroids, the testosterone, the unregulated peptides. It seems like a massive risk to take for someone who is so obsessed with their appearance. And I'm not sure it's one that's paying off. Some of his followers have even started leaving comments in recent weeks saying that he looks like he's decomposing, that his nose looks like it's collapsing, that he's withering right in front of our eyes, with many pointing out that sudden hollowing of his features, as well as changes in his skin texture and a drawn look in his eyes. They feel like he looks tired. He likes to claim he looks older than he is because he's got such masculine features, but people are starting to say that he looks older in a more drained, aged way, not in a mature or masculine way. I don't quite get the link between looking masculine and not. Like, the more masculine you look, the older you look. I don't quite get that. Others have pointed out his deteriorating muscles, saying that he looks considerably less muscular than he used to, or that he looks like a girl, which is a devastating insult apparently in the looksmaxing world. I'm sure that's keeping him up at night.
Bro looks like a girl. Okay, relax. I'm lean, that's all that matters.
To some people, Clavicular is evidence that some of the more extreme practices in looksmaxing culture are actually damaging their looks in the long run, that maybe in the short term you might not get away with some of those more questionable methods, but that over time they're going to undermine both your appearance and your long-term health. We see these a lot, especially with people with like tanning beds, for example, thinking that this is all to make them look better. Little do they know, in 10 years time, they're going to look like absolute shit. They're going to look haggard if they don't get cancer. Some of the things people are saying about Clavicular might sound pretty harsh, or at least very, very blunt, but that's what the looksmaxer culture seems to be. This is how they talk to each other on the forums and on TikTok. It doesn't seem to be a very understanding community, but a brutal one that jumps at every opportunity to point out the tiniest perceived imperfections. So I guess this kind of criticism just comes with the territory when you make yourself the most prominent figure in a community like this. And to be honest, it's hard to have sympathy for him. I'll be very honest with you. Clavicular is somebody who, like I said at the start of the video, who embodies all the worst things about the looksmaxing community. He's openly racist, openly sexist, and apparently more worried about getting attention through any means necessary than about the effect it might have on real people, including his followers. He's well known for using the N-word just because he feels like he can say it, apparently, because he wants to. There's a video where he can say that somebody doesn't look good simply because they're black. A Rolling Stone journalist who paid to join his looksmaxing course so they could write an article on it found that in it he talks about how ethnics got the short end of the phenotype stick, as well as encouraging them to follow his godly coloring routine. So basically telling people of color to make themselves look more white to be considered attractive. I'm not being funny. If you think the most attractive thing about somebody is because they're white, you have not simply scrolled enough through TikTok, you've not watched enough people online, not been to enough countries, you're not well cultured. Your little bubble is men wanting to look good for each other, because women don't give a shit about this. The fact that you think these white people are more attractive than these people of color is crazy. If you think that just because they have brown skin, they're less attractive than these people, that's crazy. Definitely on drugs. Clavicular also has a very low opinion of women, unsurprisingly, seeming to believe that most modern women are obsessed with men's looks, that the most important factor to a woman's value is her attractiveness, that women today are sleeping with too many men, that they aren't logical people, and that most don't have what he calls optimal brain chemistry. He is a man who's taking crystal meth and wants to have his legs extended, talking about anyone else's brain chemistry? You just have to watch his live streams to see that something isn't right there. With all due respect to him, he is damaged. He is damaged goods in so many ways. That same Rolling Stone article also pointed out that in his advice about women, he encourages men, when on the dance floor with a woman, to inch closer until your erection is her problem, as well as another section where he refers to universities as the most target-rich environment you'll ever be in, adding that there are dozens of slayer balls in a 5-minute radius, 0 real-world consequences. Slayer balls is just one of the gross ways Clavicular and a lot of looksmaxers refer to women. Others include foid or femoid, which is apparently short for female humanoid, a term that is meant to dehumanize women, implying that they aren't fully human. It's disgusting, and it all begs the question, who are they really doing all this for? Because let's be honest, looksmaxing is some of the gayest shit I've ever seen. Women, for the most part, don't care about a lot of the things looksmaxers are obsessed with. And from what I can tell, most looksmaxers seem to hate women. So why are they all making this effort to apparently be more attractive to women? It seems more about impressing other men than about impressing women. They're constantly talking about mogging other men, which I think means to dominate another man by being more attractive than him. Something like that. It's a stupid fucking word. It's all very strange and very gay. And you just tell how rooted in incel culture this is. Like, it's a group of incels who are having to demonize women and other people and do this hierarchy because they've got nothing going for them. It's weird. Like, it's like no one gives a shit other than you. Like, no one gives a shit. Like, who cares? Fucking mogging. But anyway, despite all of his disgusting views, or sadly maybe because of them, Clavicular still has a lot of fans who trust and support him. Not everyone is turning against him or buying this whole decomposing Clavicular story. He still has quite a lot of fans defending him, saying he's just tired from partying or streaming. You have to see some of these streams, and when he goes out and tries to pick up women and they're just taking the piss out of him.
Damn, you ladies looking good tonight. Here. The bag. Maybe off stream. Let me holla at y'all real quick if you're 18.
No, thank you.
I don't know how people can't see it. They are mocking him so badly. He gets turned down all the fucking time. Like, people just do not give a shit. It's some of the cringiest shit I've ever seen. And these people are watching this and they don't seem to realize this. They don't care about the women. They care about him. They care about this man more than they do about how they're attracting women, which is what this is all supposedly about. looking good for women. It's fine, you could be gay, it's fine. But they're also saying he just looks tired because he's focusing on other areas at the moment, like making money. Some even think it's all an act. Some think that he's actually using a filter or makeup to make himself look worse, just to gain more attention and go viral again, which, to be honest, I wouldn't put past him, but it's more likely that he's been using filters, retouching his images, got good studio lighting, and now people are seeing him out and about in the real world. They realize he's a pretty average looking guy. But either way, the real question is, why do so many people look up to this boy? He's only just turned 20. Why are so many young men willing to follow him on a path that includes punching yourself in the face, making yourself infertile, or even becoming addicted to meth? To be honest, I don't really know how he got into this situation. That's far from my life, where hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young men and teenage boys think that they have to go to these extremes to find success in life. There are probably a ton of contributing factors, like the difficulties of dating on apps that prioritize appearances, or at least first impressions, compressing the decision into a split-second swipe. That's still crazy to me. I can see how trying to date in that kind of way might make you feel like your looks are the most important thing when it comes to finding a romantic partner. I think younger looking generations chronically being online is another factor. There are way more younger people these days who live most of their lives online. They don't have many or any close relationships, friendships in real life. They don't date or even just talk to women in real life, and they're surrounded by this toxic masculinity on the internet. We also live in a world where everyone seems to be obsessed with the idea of optimization, from tech to wellness to business, and so many people are talking about optimizing our lives through AI, biohacking, or whatever new optimization someone on the internet is trying to sell to you. If everything else can apparently be optimized, then why not your looks, right? I can see how some people could be exposed to all these factors, as well as probably more people I haven't talked about. Like, the looksmaxing community is huge, and come to the conclusion that looksmaxing is the way forward for them, and how they think this is a community that they want to be involved with. But I really don't think it's the answer. Looksmaxing isn't a healthy way to look at self-improvement, in my opinion. It tells you that you're never going to be happy unless you modify yourself in these drastic ways, teaches you to blame women for everything instead of looking at the real reasons for your struggles, and convinces you that you're never good enough until you achieve their specific brand of perfection. There is nothing wrong with wanting to look better. There is nothing wrong with wanting to lift weights, improve your skin, dress well, take better care of your health, or take pride in your appearance. But healthy self-care is grounded in respect for your body, respect for yourself, your health, and for others. Most women care much less about looks than what the internet wants you to believe. Unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily true in the gay community. Often or not, you'll find that feedback in the comments from women, real life women, looksmaxers, incels, who kind of watch these videos and kind of laugh, and they're kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about? Most of the comments say that these women want somebody with a personality, who treats them like a normal human being, who listens to them and can communicate properly. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to be the next Henry Cavill. You just have to be a decent human being. The bar is literally that low nowadays. And sure, working on your hygiene, your skincare, your fitness, the way you dress, all those things can help. But you definitely don't need to be cutting your legs in half to force them to grow a few inches. You don't need to be injecting yourself with anabolic steroids or testosterone. And you definitely don't need to be microdosing crystal meth to stay lean. I just want to say something to the incel and looksmaxer community. If you really want to get a girlfriend, stop listening to men about how to get a girlfriend. That doesn't make sense. Stop worrying about optimization. Stop listening to what other men in an online forum are telling you what women want. Stop letting grifters like this Clavicular guy. Clavicular is a horrible name. Sounds like a throat disease. Stop listening to him trying to convince you they're the only one that can help you, and just start listening to actual women. It's so basic. I'm pretty sure you'll get better results with a lot less pain and effort and a lot less crystal meth.